Welcome to Mechs on Deck. It's episode 21. Today I'm
Our
Osiris.
episodes can drink.
Our episodes can drink. I'm Osiris. This is Chewy. If it's your first time here, welcome. If you're coming back again and again, we appreciate it. Today we're talking about inconsistencies, but first we got a couple things we got to talk about first.
Yeah, first we'll do a quick shout out to our sponsors. First one is switchmod.net. You can do switchmod.net/mechs on deck and get 4% off your order for lube, springs, stickers, caps, all the fun stuff. So definitely recommend 205 grade 0. If anything, for stabs. We'll be talking a lot about stabs today and lubing them. So I know Osiris and I recently made the switch and have been enjoying it. And he's got GMK Sandstorm. I keep wanting to call it Dust 2. But GMK Sandstorm, that offer code does not work on group buys, but go check that out. It's a solid looking set.
Yep. And then next up we have Dixie Mech. You can go to mechsondeck.dixiemech.com to. It helps us out a little bit. Unfortunately, you don't get any discount or anything, but it does help us out. Keeps the stream going. Keeps these episodes up and running. But you can go over there. You can get 9009. He's got other things like hats and shirts and stickers and desk mats. The desk mats for 9009 look pretty freaking sweet. So it's 9009's doing well, but if you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's a classic set in the community. It's round 3. They fixed the legends. It's all centered. They even got to the point where now GMK has made that the standard. So if you want to get your hands on the first set of the new standard of GMK legends, then pick it up.
For $100 too. $100 base kit.
I think there's missing opportunity there. They could have made it 9,009, but
$9,009 base kit.
No, $90.09. But
so. But yeah, and then last up, Zap Cables. Zap Cables. We just did the bumper giveaway. Congrats again to Gio from the Zap Discord and from our Discord as well. But you get awesome custom cables from him. He does runs, so I would join his Discord, and you can kind of find out when those are going to be if you want a nice fancy custom one, or if you want to make one, you can pick up a DIY kit if you don't want to have to wait. And we have on our channel a build stream or a build video of us painstakingly going through it. But the point of us to spend that many problems is so that you do not have to. So definitely go check that out. And he's got cool desk mats too. He's got awesome desk mats, some even cooler stickers. Like he's got a lot of stuff that I think sometimes gets overlooked. But yeah, get all that stuff. Zap Cables. Go check them out.
Absolutely. So first up, I know Chewy's pretty excited about something that he has kind of created. Did some experimenting the other day and found a new Franken switch that he's enjoying.
So it is a Zelio. I posted this on our Instagram, which by the way, I am restarting our Instagram back up. I've just been rough on that, but we'll be if you guys want any of your boards posted on there, throw them on the keyboard chat. I'll be trying to do, if not once a day, every other day. But yeah, so these switches, I've got one on my switch tester, except I'm doing bad because I got autofocus. So what it is a Zelio V2 bottom, a Yak Red Panda, although it doesn't have to be red. I just Yak top. I just had the red tops. And a Halo stem. This is a 78 gram. I would recommend if you did want to do these. Let's get back in focus. There we go. Whichever Zelio you're using, I would just use those springs. They are surprisingly really good. So I've got my Tofu right now, my tester board, and it sounds. My mic is not made for doing amazing sound tests, but when I tell you that this thing sounds awesome, It does. I just put a huge nick in my my wrist rest. Like that's a deep one. Anyway, ignoring what just happened. I know that people are always trying to kind of find the Holy Panda was something that was made just Quakem sitting at his desk and people are trying to find. I'm not saying this is the new Mechs big thing, but just experiment because I found something that's awesome. If you do plan on making this is an expensive Switch at like $2 a Switch because you have to get 3 different Switches to do so. Just be careful because Zelio tops have a blocker for one of the pins where the Yak pandas do not. So the pins can kind of slip. You just have to be careful. But yeah, it's a really, I'm excited. I'm gonna try and do like a typing test and see if my mic can kind of do it justice. Soon, I'll probably post that on Instagram. But yeah, it's really. I'm really excited for you. I know we haven't. I'm probably gonna bring this to the Austin meetup, just to get people to try it, just because it's a really cool Switch.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited to try it. You've been ranting and raving about it since you created it earlier, or well, it was just a few days ago. It's only been
Yeah, it was. I wanted to try Xandas, which is a Zelio stem and a Panda housing, and then I put the Halo. I just took the Halo stem and put that in the Zelio housing, and I was like, oh, the Holy stem and the Halo stem and a Zelio housing feels great, but the sound isn't there. And I was like, oh, if I just put this Yak top on, maybe the sound will be better, and that's kind of where it all. I mean, because it's going to feel basically the same as a Holy Zelio, but the sound is a lot better. Not that Zelio's. I think the one big thing that's missing is the sound, and this kind of accounts for that. So yeah, and then you've got some cool mail. Not exactly typing on mail, but stuff for keyboards
Yeah,
mail.
so I've been kind of wanting to up my screwdriver game for a little while, not just because of keyboards, but because of other things um, that I do. And I had seen a couple people having like the small electric screwdrivers, so I picked up this one on Amazon. It came in this fancy little case. The packaging was like it was not super expensive. I think it was like either high 30s, low 40s for everything. Packaging was like super on point. It looked like something that like Apple would make. Um, but it comes with this little case, and it's pretty fancy. It's nice and small, but it's got a little light on the front, which is nice when you're trying, especially if you're working on something like a bumper or something that's tray mount and you want to see that screw. It's it's nice to be able to get some light in there to find the hole. The only gripe I have is I wish it did come with like somewhere a better way to store the bits, because they are in these like little tubes, which is nice. Like it holds them all really well, but it's not like the Nanch or some of the other stuff where it's all in like a singular tray that's easy to get in and out. You do have to take these in and out, but it's pretty nice, pretty nice. Used it a little bit, and it works out really well. Charges this one charges on USB micro or whatever I think is what it's called. It's like the really small one. They have a newer one that charges USB C, and that one's a little bit more expensive. But yeah, I'm excited to start using it and hopefully keep it charged. Knowing me, it'll be dead when I need it. But no, so not necessarily keyboard related, but oh, and then I got behind me, which you can't really see it because it's kind of blurred. I bought like a little organizer to put all my switches in and lube and brushes and other tools that I have because my drawer in my desk was getting very full. So now I just have like a couple PCBs, like an old like plastic case and some other stuff in that drawer. So
Storage is important.
yeah.
And when you're dealing with lots of switches, especially if you're dealing with something like making the same switch but with different spring weights, I know a lot of people who are like ride or die by like vintage blacks or something like that, but they want to have their vintage blacks with 80 gram and then their vintage blacks with 78 gram. That might not, you might drive yourself crazy having to test those. So keeping those separate and stored is always helpful. So especially
Well,
if when you move into getting lots and lots of stuff.
well, and like I have the switches that I need for like my next like 3 or 4 builds that I have planned for myself and for some boards that are coming in hopefully before the end of the year. Um, and so I just have a bunch of switches that I wouldn't typically have. Like I don't keep a ton. Like I don't keep 100 switches on hand of certain types just to have. So I have a little bit more than I typically would. Typically, I'll keep like maybe like 15 or 20 of spare switches. But yeah, so it's nice to have a place to put them instead of just like in my drawer.
Yeah.
Especially because I've got some switches that I've taken out of, like I've got the the 78 gram Zelio V1s that were in my Orange 75 initially. I've got those up in there. I've got my Nolivs in there, which I'm excited to mess around with. So
yeah, but storage is important.
it is.
So, but moving on, our topic for today is something that it's an interesting discussion because there is a good chunk of the community that sometimes can fall under mob mentality, and so we're going to talk about inconsistencies in our community when it comes to products. So switches, keycaps, stabilizers, keyboards. And so when I say mob mentality, I mean, if one person, maybe someone who is looked up to in the community, or someone who is, someone like uh, Jay and Brian from Top Clack, or Nathan Kim from Teja, someone who might say something and go, "Hey, I've noticed that there's something wrong here." And that might trigger everybody else to go, "Okay, there's something wrong," without doing their own research. So, what we've seen and we've talked about on our channel whenever we had Anthony 001 or 001 Anthony, I can never remember, is is switches and switch inconsistencies. So he brought some Telios over that had a slight but noticeable bump right at the beginning. And a Telio switch is a linear switch, meaning there's not supposed to be a bump. But we've seen that in certain switches, whether it's something's wrong with the leaf where it's making it cause a bump, or scratchiness that is not fixable by lube. These inconsistencies are talked about constantly, and it begs the question of, why is it a thing, and is that okay?
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It's like obviously with manufacturers, there are different tolerances that they go off of. You know, the big deal with different cherry blacks has been, are they retooled blacks, which is basically they've changed out the molds. It's a new mold versus like vintage. It's a completely different mold, right? And it's every time you do something like that, every time a mold's been in use for a really long time, it's going to change the way it feels. Now, things like what's happening with some of the Gatoron linear switches, that's not necessarily the mold. That's something that I feel like somewhat needs to be looked at and figured out. Hey, how do we prevent this inconsistency? Because it's not all of them; it's just some of them, um, and it's really sad to see on something that is considered like premium lines within the Gatoron, like both the ink and the uh, Telios are more expensive than like your standard Gatoron yellow, red, black, browns. Like they're a tier above. They're meant to be a tier above. So it's sad to see that there is some inconsistency there, and I hope that they do address it, because I think it's either the leaf or it's something weird going on with the housings itself that's causing like a little bit of the like bump or click. I mean, it's one of those things too. When you start to feel it, you can't unfeel it. Like,
Yeah.
it frustrates you. And even down to something like the drop panda situation with the lube and the super inconsistent lube. It's like, why? Some of these
Mhm.
situations you're just like, why did you do this? Like, why? Just just either don't lube them or make sure that you have a consistent way of lubing them so they don't feel like crap. They're not scratchy
Mhm.
on one side and super mushy on the other. So I don't know.
So it is goofy. I think when you talk about, premium switches, I will say there is a tiered system, and I think when you get to the $4 to $5 range, you're kind of in that mid tier, and then anything above is what I would anything. If you're spending more than $6 or $6 and up on a switch, you're paying for a premium switch, and I see often, Gatoron inks are 650 for 10, so 65 cents a switch. And I see often people going, well, make sure you buy 10% more than you need, or 10 extra, or 20 extra. Um, which to me as a consumer, it goes, okay, why? If I'm paying this much for a switch, and I understand there are the people that go, okay, well, if you instead of buying 70 buy 80, that's only $6 extra, but it's like, if I'm buying something that's already that good or supposed to be that good, is it even that great if I have to buy so many extra? And that can be frustrating to a consumer because if, we talk about wanting to keep costs down and keep people in the community. And so if you go, hey, if you're looking to spend a little extra money, get these Gatoron ink switches, they're fantastic. And then they get them and then, they get let's say they get a 65, but they made a huge mistake and bought a 65% board and only bought 70 switches, so they're only running with about 4 extra spare switches. If 10% of those 70 switches, you're going to have some bad switches on your board. And if you're someone that's going, hey, these are premium switches, these are going to be some of the best right now, why would you accept anything less than perfect? And I understand that the obvious, answer to that is, well, they're making tens of thousands of them. But if there's that many inconsistencies, then the price should, in theory, be cheaper.
Yeah, it should be something that's not like the what if they're not looking over it and they're not making adjustments, why is it more expensive than something like a Gator on Yellow that's super popular in the community and is typically seen as a super nice, really high end switch. Not high end, I guess is not the right word, but it's seen as a very um, solid alternative to a Chelio or an ink. And there, when you're spending as little as you do on like the stock Gator on Yellows, you can afford that extra percentage of having some be a little bit clicky and have that little bump to them. So what are you getting extra? If they're not going to put that extra time into figuring out those issues. So
Mhm.
I think in a situation like that, the inconsistency is definitely not. It's definitely not okay for that. I think they should at least figure out what's going on with them. Um, and if they come out and say, "Hey, it's not that it still falls within our tolerances," and then it's like, okay, well then you, like we always say, vote with your wallet and decide if the inks or the Telios are so much better than a yellow or a black or a red, and you're willing to put in that extra time to figure out which ones have that little bit of an issue, um, then vote with your wallet and buy them.
Yeah. And then the last argument that I have seen, not the last, but another big argument that I have seen is that people are going, okay, well, you can lube them to fix them if they're scratchy. What we see with inks, but we talked about this a while back with Quakems about lubing switches and modifying switches. Is you don't lube a bad switch to try and make it good. You lube an already good switch to make it great. And so, in theory, yeah, you might be able to help smooth out some issues. And we're not talking about tiny small issues that you definitely can lube out, whether it came from the factory slightly under lube, that's something that you can fix. But something where the plastic is not smooth and the switch that is going along the rails is not gliding, it's grinding due to some inconsistency with whether it's the mold for the base or a mold for the stem. So you shouldn't have to lube a switch to fix a huge problem. If you want to lube a switch to make go, I want a much smoother typing experience, or I want to, maybe this is slightly too tactile and I just want to make it glide a little bit more and kind of help smooth everything out, then that's fine. But if I buy something knowing I'm going to buy something brand new, knowing I'm going to have to spend time to fix it, is not something I would want to buy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think and we're not saying anything against lubing switches or anything like that, and that you shouldn't. It's more of like you shouldn't feel like you have to, right?
Yeah.
It makes, like you said, it makes a good switch better. It makes a switch that you would like typically to a switch that you would love. Um, and I feel like a lot of times people don't spend time on their switches before they lube them, and they don't try to break it in at least a little bit to try to get it, because sometimes it'll take out that scratchiness a little bit. But yeah, I don't know if there's any switches necessarily right now that are super popular that are like everyone's like, oh well, you have to lube them.
I'd say creams.
I've been messing around with mine a little bit, and they feel okay. They're not like they're not terrible. Like they're definitely usable, but they're not like that's a switch that definitely gets tons better. There's a very high ceiling for that switch when it is lubed.
I guess the first round of creams were pretty rough.
Yeah. And I think that's a different argument. It's like it's a switch that was already good, but it's so much better. Like I feel like it's a good switch initially, but when you do lube it, it makes it so much better. I think if you were to put it up against some of these other ones, it's still going to be a good switch. So,
so moving on, keycaps. So we've seen there's kind of the big three right now, which is Signature Plastics, GMK, and EPBT. JTK a little bit, but we really have seen a steep decline from JTK. We're seeing more. We've seen more, but if EPBT is the only one that can kind of hold a candle to GMK and SP, and inconsistencies there, which we've seen before, is warping. So while you're not paying this huge premium price for GMK, we've seen basically any key that's longer than a 1U start to warp, and that can really mess up how the board feels. And if it's warped too far, you actually can't even use it, because if the space bar is bent far enough, then it's going to bend your stabilizers, thus causing it to really be rough, and it could even warp as far to where it's unusable.
Yeah, and I know, and it's that's actually not a problem that's like just isolated to EPBT. I know that with the drop profile, the MT3 profile has had a lot of issues with their spacebars as well, which I feel like that's another one that's kind of coming up. We had just had MT3 Serica run. MT3 Godspeed just shipped like 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, and that was not great for
Less
some
than
people.
stellar.
I know our buddy Anthony, 001 Anthony, had issues with some of the space bars that he got where they were a little bit warped. They had, you could put it on a desk and you could kind of wobble it. And I don't remember if they manufacture, if Drop has their own manufacturer for MT3 or if it goes through someone else, but I know that's been an issue. And then of course, like you say, in the EPBT, it's been inconsistent in more ways than just the spacebar. I know when they first were doing sets, and even some more recently, have had issues with colors being weird, legends being like really fuzzy looking, or just being completely off.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them not lining up correctly in the slightest. So, and I know that there's been some people in the community, like Gawk did some really good work with them. Penny Bush talked about it in our episode with him, where he went in and kind of fixed a whole bunch of their legends because they were all off. But I think EPBT has some problems because there's not, from what I understand, there's not a good connection from the actual factory to the people who design out here, at least in North America. It's basically just the designer talking to Way from KBD fans, and then they go to the factory. So I'm not sure if that is an issue, but it seems like most of these other companies have a group of people that are actually at the manufacturing facility day to day that are working on these sets, making sure that everything's great. GMK is working hand in hand with Dixie Mech to create 9009 and 8008. It's not going through like 5 different people to get the information out. And I feel like that could be part of the issues with some of the other things, but warping space bars, it's like, come on. That's like, mold your plastic.
And you can fix it, but once again,
shouldn't have to.
You shouldn't have to fix anything. So that's another EPBT is another great set to recommend to people that are just coming in, because you can get complete sets that can have tons of compatibility for about $100. You look at something like 9009, which is $100 base kit, and that's amazing, but you're very limited on compatibility. So when you get something like EPBT for like $100 or $109, you get every key you can imagine. That's a great way to go, hey, here's a beginner set. You can get this, and you might not ever have to get another key set. But it's one of those things. That's just another thing. We're not trying to slander EPBT. I've got Grayscale sitting on my
I
love it.
Using an EPBT set.
Yeah, like I have absolutely nothing against EPBT. It's just one of those things that you do kind of have to think about whenever you're wanting to spend money. Is hey, this might not be this. This is a situation where kind of opposite of switches, where you're going, okay, this is cheaper, but I might be getting a cheaper product.
Yeah.
So, but moving on, this is the big one. This is the one that kind of inspired the episode, is stabilizers. So I recently, this past week, built the Austin and got some screw-in stabilizers. And he purchased these from Novel Keys. I will say that this is not Novel Keys' fault. I don't want anyone to think this is Novel Keys' fault. He just is a distributor. But people have been saying that they're really scratchy and these stabs are just not great. And once again, I try not to say anything, because until I get my hands on something and can tell firsthand, I don't want to say anything. And I can now say firsthand that there are a few stabs in that bunch that are not up to par. From what I am used to. Even on just the board, 4 of the stabs were really, really good, but 2 of them were bad, like not acceptable. Like I lubed them, and I did everything I could. I put probably more lube than I normally would, to try and smooth it out. But the backspace alone on that board, I was just like, this is not great. Like they really missed the mark on this. And people are talking about whether it's maybe the molds for this kind of got messed up, or the molds for these stabilizers are not acceptable, or they're starting to wear down. But I guess these are just for screw-in stabilizers, but I would just be weary right now about getting, if you're building your holy grail keyboard, I might be weary about getting some stabs, or before you solder everything in, really test your stabs to make sure that that's exactly how you want to approach it.
Yeah, I have some stabs that I got. I don't remember where it wasn't Novel Keys. I can't remember where I got them. Um, but I have some GMK stabs that I had gotten. I'd got them on drop like a long time ago. I bought a whole bunch when they had the last time they had the GMK screw in. I bought like 4 or 5 sets um, from them, and I've had them for a long time. And I was comparing the two of them, and the inserts on the stabs, like the internal, the actual part that has the MX stem, it's that alone is so much more rough, and the seam that's on there, because it's two pieces of plastic together, the seam that's on there is nowhere near as clean as it was a year and a half ago when the ones that I have from drop were made. I don't know how you would fix that. I mean, in terms of right now, like I don't know how I would physically. I guess I could use sandpaper, but at the end of the day, that's gonna make it. It's gonna be hard for me to polish it back to get it, you know, really even and really nice and flush. But it's like, why? I
It's
feel
awkward.
I feel like it's one of those things that the mold is deteriorating a little bit that they use. So it's causing these extra like little tolerance issues, and that's why it might be inconsistent, because they might be going from batches, from like different batches, or it could be like one mold is like a little bit messed up, or maybe a couple molds in the factory are messed up. Um, but I'm hoping. I'm obviously GMK is super in the community. You know, they make almost all of the key sets that are out,
Hmm.
and they have a lot of money riding on stabilizers because they make a ton of money off of working with other manufacturers on big box brands and stuff and doing boards for them. So I would think that they would see this and get see the issues that are happening and kind of hop on it and get it fixed.
Mhm.
Um, but
So, and this kind of, and stabilizers are an interesting concept in general because you talk about getting a product and should not have to do anything. And this is the exact opposite. People buy them, but it's the first, they tell you the first thing you need to do is clip the bottoms, clip the legs, and then you have to lube them. So it's like you're getting something that you have to transform to make into a better stabilizer. I will say you do. Like it will be rattly and louder, and you'll hear connection between the bottom of the board because the legs, not only do they go out, but there's little tiny feet on the bottom that stick out. And I mean, you're talking millimeters, but that's all it takes to be able for that to tap the PCB and to make extra noise.
and what is
Uh,
the point of those?
I have no idea.
Like, like what?
I
Why are
imagine
they
that it
there?
was. I imagine that the molds were made because of a specific keyboard a very long time ago, and they just never changed them. And so, you know, you're buying something that you have to adjust, which we've just spent the last 20 minutes talking about. You shouldn't have to buy something that you have to adjust. But I mean, that's kind of the name of the game right now is once you get your stabs, make sure you clip and lube them. And so there are other options, but in reality, there's one other option, which are Zeal stabs. And Zeal stabs are fantastic. I will tell you that they are great. They are awesome. They are not worth the price, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I
super
think
expensive.
they're a set of Zeal stabs will run you $30 to $40. A set of GMK stabs will run you a quarter of that tops. Um, and so when Zeal stabs, there's the two biggest difference. It's a different plastic because they're clear, so they can with an RGB style board that will just help diffuse light more, and that's great. But they're already the mold for them is they don't have those legs. You don't have to clip them, so it's just kind of more lube and go. But the plastic is very very smooth. But you pay such a high premium that hold on real quick. My apologies. discussions have been had about getting a new camera. um, but so they're fantastic, but that price difference makes it almost not worth it. Now, if you're someone who's going, I want the best of the best, I'm gonna buy, a super high end board. I'm gonna get Zeal stabs. This is gonna be my one and only. Go for it. If you want to make the most in gamey board ever, Zeal stabs. They are, I will say, they are better than GMK stabs. I just don't think that they are 4 times the price better. It's hard to beat $2 for a stabilizer.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Zeal stabs for 2Us and a 7U or a 6.25, it's $30. Like, it's a lot. It's expensive. They are good. They are very good. But it's like the opportunity cost. Are those good enough? Is the difference between GMK and Zeal good enough to justify the price difference? Now, if GMK continues down the line and doesn't fix these, that might be
you can
more
really
appealing.
Start looking, yeah.
And especially if Zeal, not saying that he would or that he even needs to,
but he should.
If he hops on this and is like, hey, I'm gonna lower my price by, he makes them, like $25 or like $22.50 and drops the price of them, then I feel like people are going to start moving over, and then he's going to have even more orders for Zeal stabs, because there are most people in the community I know personally that don't ever even consider Zeal stabs just because of their price. Another one that I know has been working on their stabs for like a year now is Rama, and they're pumping out stuff like crazy right now. When are they going to come in and make their own stab? Like, and is it going to be good? And is it going to be at a price that's, competitive with GMK? Maybe, probably not, honestly, but is it going to be in between Zeal and GMK? Because if it is, then that's an even more attractive product. Because if GMK doesn't care to figure this out or doesn't see it as an issue, and that could be what ends up happening, they could say it's not an issue. Like when Kale had the issue with the box switches and they came out and fixed them, they didn't technically have to do that. It wasn't out of the spec of their switch. It was out of the spec for the enthusiast market. This could be the same situation, and GMK could say, we're not going to do anything about it. It still works for us. I don't think they will. I don't think that if it does get brought up to them in this, in like an actual issue, I don't think they're going to be like, hey, no, we're not going to fix it, but they could. Like, it's a realistic approach to that. I hope that someday we get an alternative option that's at a similar price point, or maybe a little bit more. Because
I'd be okay spending $5 or $4 stabilizer, $5 stabilizer, where it's like, instead of spending, because I mean, for me, my main layout, I only need 2Us and 1 7U. So if I had to spend $15 on stabilizers, I'm like, well, if they're great, if they're these amazing stabilizers that work, then yeah, I'm going to spend it because I'm going to put the money in. But doubling that for something that is not double the end product, then there's no reason. So,
well, I think Zeal would also sell more if he broke it up too. The fact that he only has 4 2U, you can only get packs. You can only get 4 2U and 1 6.5 or 7, or you can get the pack of, like, I think it's 8 2Us and then 1 6.25 and 1 7U. Which, if you're building 2 boards and one of you likes 7 and one of you likes 6.25, I would say buy that, because I think it's like $50. So you're saving, you're getting them for $25 per pack of 5 stabilizers. So I would say that's probably that would be considered somewhat of a bargain. But 5 stabs for $30 is a little bit much. $6 versus $2 that's quite a price hike. It's justified in the fact that they are really good and that they are kind of like his own deal. Um, but it would be nice if they were closer, or if someone else came in and made something that was similar. It doesn't even have to be as good as a Zeal stab. Just it could be just as good as GMK and charge, $350 per stab, and I would still probably buy them because of the issues that GMK is having right now.
We need competition.
Yeah.
Stabilizer market needs competition. Rama's been working on it, but nothing against Rama, but he doesn't. Some of his products do take a long time. So
Well, and the big question with Rama too is it going to be something that's stocked? Like,
yeah, or is
they
this
don't.
like a group buy?
Yeah, they're not someone that keeps things in stock. They do their runs, and then they go move on to the next thing. They move on to the next thing. Are they going to do what they're doing with the cap puller and have it stocked through like Dixie? Maybe. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. So, but moving on to our last topic, we won't go too far because this gets real hairy, especially when it comes to you have multiple vendors and multiple group buy runners, but board inconsistencies. So what we do see a lot in the community is B stock boards. So boards that they made that they're just trying to recoup their money on. They're usually going to be a solid bit cheaper, but with defects. Um, and they're very open about going, hey, this is a B stock. Most people are very open going, hey, this is B stock. Maybe there's a dent. Maybe there's a problem with the anodization. Stuff like that where maybe it wasn't the group buy runner's fault. Maybe it was manufacturing. They're just trying to make some money. And some people don't care. If there's a 4-inch gash across the bottom of your keyboard and that saves you $100, but you're like, I love this board, but I can't, but I couldn't afford it at $400, but now it's $300. And it's like, all right, cool. Well, now you have a board. It might not look pretty on the bottom, but if you can't see it.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing with this is I love seeing B stock boards because that means the manufacturer or the runners took time to properly QC the product. What I don't like seeing is pictures on a group buy thread on GeekHack a week after it ships of all these issues. Because we've had that a couple times recently, where stuff like that has happened, where boards that probably should have been labeled as B stock get sent out as A stock, and they're some of the first ones out, and then they have all these issues. Some of them are stuff internal where you don't see it, and maybe that's why it went as A stock. But still, if you're paying, $300 to $700 for a board, you want it to come out great. And honestly, as a consumer, you deserve that. You shouldn't be like, oh, it's okay. Like,
yeah, no compromises.
yeah, I mean, like, I can understand something that's like maybe like a hairline scratch in the inside. That's okay, but like screws that get stuck, or like, I mean, there was some issues with like the Leaf 60 where it was just like basically unusable for some people. And the CA 66 was still having issues, and that's on a second run. It's just
it's sad
time.
to see.
It's sad to see, and I feel bad for the runners because I know that they put their heart and soul in running the group buy and making sure it goes well, and they don't. There's been so many different situations in the last year with keyboards where it takes a long time for a group buy, like it's delayed, and then all of a sudden the boards get in and maybe they're not up to the standards, and they send them out because they're afraid to be like, hey, I need to redo this, because they don't want people to get upset. A lot of times these are not the actual runner's fault. Now, them sending them out, that's their discretion, and I think that maybe there's some people who might need to be a little bit tighter on their QC, but at the end of the day, do your research and figure out if that's something you want to get into. If you are getting into a group buy with a runner who has past inconsistencies with quality control and they've sent out boards that are, subpar, then maybe consider that as a risk. Um, but
Yeah, I think one of the I'm gonna shout him out. I don't actually think I've ever exchanged words with him, but Quantric, who did the QXP, had the very infamous incident where I guess the FedEx guy
dropped all the
dropped
sports.
dropped all of the boards, or at least all of the products that had the brass weights in them, and maybe it was the boards, I don't remember, but damaged most of them. It damaged over half of them, and he was very upfront. After I'm sure swallowing his pride and having a borderline panic attack, like I would, he had to go. Yeah, this happened. Sorry. But he didn't just say, sorry, too bad, send them out. He asked, he said, I'll send you a picture. There's like 100 boards. He was like, every single person, I'm going to send you a picture. And if it is too far damaged, we'll take care of it. If it is fine by you, then we'll send it out. Some people just want the board. If some people go, oh, I don't care that the brass weight's scuffed. Just send it to me. I don't care. And then they have their board sooner. And then some people who go, well, if I'm spending this much money, I want the perfect product. So take your time. That's great too. But what's great is that he QC'd it and made sure that everyone was happy in the situation. And I think that's how you run a board. That's how you run a group buy when it comes to quality control. Because yes, things do happen. People are not perfect. The world is not perfect, unfortunately. Therefore, you're going to get some scuffs. You're going to get some bad anodization on certain boards. But it is up to the group buy runner to go, hey, would I sell this full price, or is this going to be, how much of a difference is this defect versus something that is perfect? Is this worthy of being a B stock board? And if so, I need to make sure that this is sold at a B stock board, and potentially either talk to the consumer, see if you can, most people are probably not going to knock prices off, but if I got an email saying, hey, we have a small damage on the back, I'm going to refund you $80, or you can wait 6 months, I might take the $80 refund. All right, cool. So
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, just being upfront. Like, even, I know a lot of people are upset right now about this not having their Xeno yet. But I love the fact that Zio was like, I don't like this color. It's not up to what I wanted. It didn't look how I wanted. I'm going to have these rose gold parts all redone. There are some people who would just be like, well, it's not exactly what I hoped, but it's close enough, and there's nothing inherently wrong with them. I'll just send it out. I love that people have that mentality of, this isn't exactly what I wanted. I'm gonna get it fixed. Or, hey, this happened. Reaching out to your consumers, reaching out to your buyers, who supported you in the first place, and saying, hey, this happened. Are you okay with this? I've even seen it with like Fox Lab boards where he'll refund like $20 for like a hairline scratch. It's like, and this was on boards that people bought after the fact. So
yeah, it's all communication, and the good group buy runners continue to do group buys because they have good communication. So but so I guess the last one is or the last question really is, what inconsistencies, what does that do to our community? Because unfortunately that might put us in a situation where we don't know where to go, kind of like stabilizers. If you don't want to spend $35 but you can't get GMK, you're kind of SOL, sadly. And one thing that I will beg people to do, and is, most of the people that you get get anything from, really, unless you're buying like GMK Q01 from GMK, you're not, most of the time you're buying from a distributor, not a manufacturer. So the distributor, a lot of people like the biggest thing I've seen is a lot of people kind of gave Novel Keys heat for the box situation. That's not Novel Keys' fault. Novel Keys is not Kale. And so I felt bad that he was getting all the heat, and it's like he distributes them, and it kind of sucks that it's like, well, yeah, his name's at the top of the receipt, but that doesn't mean that he's doing that.
Yeah, it's like
So
when recalls happen on like food, like the Bluebell situation a couple of years ago where people were getting sick from eating ice cream. You didn't go back to Walmart and you scream and yell at the Walmart person that you got sick. You get mad at the manufacturer of the product, right? So
mhm.
it's not like the issue of the stabilizers. I saw people doing the same thing, getting mad at Novel Keys. It's not like he tests each stabilizer. Like realistically, you can't do that. It's a $2 part. You know, it's not a $500 keyboard where you expect someone to look through it and make sure everything's good. It's a $2 part.
And I wouldn't even want him to test a stabilizer because
Yeah,
that's an extra time. That's an extra time the screw has to go into the thread. You might screw up the stabilizer. You have a better chance messing it up,
yeah. So it's like
testing it than
it's not
not.
his fault. He has no idea. He just assumes it's business as usual and that they are the same that they've always been. And unfortunately, they're not. So not necessarily you don't have to get super mad at the manufacturer either, but don't be up on like Novel Keys or Dixie or someone about an issue if they didn't even know it existed
Mhm.
and they had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. So, but final thoughts. I personally don't like the idea of certain things being inconsistent if it's at a premium price, such as Switches. It definitely turns me off of like Gatoron inks. Like I do really like my inks, and I got lucky. I tested them all, and I got lucky. I think I had like one rough one, but it makes me think about, okay, if I'm going to be buying Gatoron inks, like what about Zelios? What about and you do kind of see a lot of these in linear switches because it's easier to find the problem since there's nothing really going on. But a lot of the other ones though is kind of like, well, I mean, I'd buy this EPBD set and I got a bent space bar and it sucks, but it's what you do. It's what you get for spending less money on something of a d- lesser quality, maybe less quality control in the regards of keycaps. And then stabilizers and boards, that's just boards. It just stinks. That just stinks when it happens, and you just have to kind of roll with the punches. I'm someone that would love to. I'm okay buying B stock boards because I'm like, whatever, I'll take the 100. I bought his B stock Zephyr. Wound up selling it because the layout was garbage, but second slander at 65%. But still, but it had issues, and I bought it anyway. I was like, whatever, it's got issues. Like, I'm not worried about it. Like, I'll take the extra $110 I saved on it.
Yeah.
So,
I think for me, I think while inconsistencies are bad, I think they can do good things for our community and do good things for different products. Like take stabilizers, for instance. If someone comes in and makes something that's similar or better or just as good as a GMK stabilizer and it's at a maybe similar or even just a little bit higher price point, then now our community has moved forward because of an issue, right? Um, and that's what you want to see. That's what you hope to see out of these inconsistencies. Um, and I think even with boards, I think when you see as someone who's going to run a group buy, when you are looking at that as someone, you're like, I want to make a keyboard, and you go and you look at all these threads on Geekhack, you can see, all right, these boards had these issues. I know what to look for now when I'm QCing my board, when I'm talking with manufacturers. You kind of get a better idea of how to approach situations, what to look for. You can even, if you're at a meetup, you can look at different boards, like figure out what you like and what you don't like, things that you don't want to happen in your boards, or what you like when you're looking at other vendors' boards. Um, because there are some things that some people would consider issues that vendors don't think are issues. Like, for instance, I don't like duck anodization. I think it feels like sandpaper. Some people like it. I think Duck has been like, I think it's fine. I like it. And so that's something personally, I don't like it. Not necessarily an issue to the manufacturer, but
And that's just preference.
preference. But
Yep.
at the same time, overall, inconsistencies with switches, we need to tighten it up. That's expensive. Like
we're spending 65 cents a switch. I'm like, let's
I mean, yeah, because when you think about it,
let's make that a better switch.
Price difference is relevant. Like in reality, 65 cents is not very much, right? Like at the end of the day, that's not a ton of money. But when you consider the price difference versus something that's like a standard line switch, then you're like, oh wow. Especially something like a Telio that are like $1 a switch. Then it's like, whoa. Now you're paying more for something that has issues that some of the other ones might not, or have less of a chance of having that issue. So we'll see. I will say that I'm interested to try some of the like I can't remember what he calls it, the like higher tier versions of the switches that they're making. They're making like, I think, yeah, so they're called the Aqua. Like he has the Aqua Xylence. I'm interested to see what the differences are those are. I don't know if it's just the housing. I know that he's saying that there's some small differences between the switches. So we'll see. Revised bottom housing.
My hope is a sound difference. I hope it's better.
Yeah, me too. Because I love the way my Xylence feel, but I hate the way they sound. I wish, like, it's one of those situations I wish they sounded like nothing, because the way that they sound is just so bleh. Yeah. So.
Well, quick shout out to our sponsors one more time, as that will be a wrap on Inconsistencies. So switchmod.net, you can go to switchmod.net/Mechs on deck for 4% off lube and springs and stickers, keycaps, little DCS keycaps. He also has GMK Sandstorm running right now. Make sure to go check that out. The 4% off does not include group buy for the GMK sets, but if you're getting a set, you also need some lube to lube up those scratchy stabilizers. Have at it. There's some solid a 205 grade zero. It's great. Highly recommend.
And then you can go to mechsondeck.dixiemech.com. You fortunately it doesn't get you a discount or anything, but it does help us out a little bit. So if you are looking at getting GMK 9009, you can head on over there and pick that up. And, bookmark that link, mechsondeck.dixiemech.com. Whenever you're looking to get something from there, whether it's a desk mat, hats, shirts, whatever key set he's running, if he runs another version of the Bauer, if you use that, it helps us out a lot. We really appreciate it. So please consider using our link.
Yep. And then last but not least, our partner, Zap Cables. He does awesome cables, custom cables. You can get it on a custom cable run by him and get some good high quality cables. If you do not want to wait, you can also get the DIY kits. We have a video showing you how to do it. Fairly easy once you get the hang of it, but we will definitely recommend those cables. He's also got desk mats, stickers. You can make audio cables. I was you can if you want to plug in that aux cable in your car and look baller doing it. Get yourself an awesome audio cable as well. So Zap Cables, thank you very much.
But yeah, I think that's going to kind of wrap it up for us. Again, if you liked the video, please like it, subscribe. We stream every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central Time on our Twitch channel. The link is in the description.
Yeah. No build stream this week. Just don't have a board in right now. But we do have one following week, 99% sure. So, September.
But yeah, that's going to wrap it up. So, thanks again. We appreciate y'all. And we'll see y'all again real soon.
Bye, Switch Tester.